Okay, we'll do a quick introduction to subsurface scattering and displacement. And they're both in kind of awkward places to get to. So subsurface is in hypershade, and then in the head area. So if you weren't here, you would just go to head, right click, graph network. And you'll see that the skin head diffuse JPEG is attached to both the base color and the subsurface color. Okay, and so if we go over here to the head attribute, I've got it so you can see the subsurface, but it's kind of a little out of the way, so you have to go down to get to it. So here's the base color, and you can see that it's attached here, and we've brought in the weight of the base color to 0.2. Subsurface scattering is farther down, right? So these are all the settings that we're trying to tweak to make his skin look real. So there's some specular, there's some metalness, and roughness. All of these numbers are numbers we've been tweaking and trying to play around to get the skin right. But here's the big daddy. Here's the subsurface. I haven't, I'm actually surprised that number looks so high. Why is it all the way over there? I don't know how it got all the way over there. That's weird, but he looks pretty good. So the weight of subsurface scattering is 0.8, and because he's got metalness on, you'll see what happens if we lower that. Okay, so that's basically the metalness coming in. I'm going to just undo that. And then this radius right here, which I'm surprised is so high. I think I might have hit a button. If I put it down here, he becomes less sort of see-through. And in general, I like it to be, you'll see that his nose can get very sort of translucent, and his ears, even if light's behind them, light will come through, and this sort of controls that, right? It's the depth of sort of the subsurface scattering. And so you can see over here sort of light sort of passing into the shadow area, and that happens less when we lower the radius. Okay, so tweaking that and getting that right, I don't know, I felt like I had a different number earlier, but these numbers we're still kind of playing around with. But that's subsurface scattering, right? So that's the amount of light that enters into the skin and gets reflected around. It's also something you want to turn off immediately if your renders are getting slow and you're just trying to check out an animation. Okay, and so I've set some of that up. So if you go into my CC3 thing, into the area where I say don't touch, right? You'll see that these buttons will control some of that. So here it says you can view displacement without subsurface scattering or skin color, right? And it's a good way to check and see how your bumps are doing. Here's view head with displacement and subsurface scattering. So it's sort of everything together. And then you can control the render settings a bit. So there's some that are faster, and you can see why. It's more reflective. And then there's high quality, and that one's not working for some reason. But those will eventually be working perfectly. It looks like they're kind of working okay. Arnold skin shader. Okay, so these are going to change all those values and make it easier to render if you're working on animation. The other thing we want to look at is displacement. And displacement's in a whole different world. So to find where those displacement numbers are, I can't believe how well they buried them. So you have to click on the head or the body, and then make sure that you get to the body shape. And then it's got all these menus. Usually they're all closed, and you have to go to Arnold. And then not only do you have to go to Arnold, but you have to go to the bottom of that. And here you'll see subdivision, and this is the amount of calculations that it will do. And if you put this to 6, you'll flatten even some of the best computers. And if you put it to 1, it moves really quickly. 4 kind of gives us the maximum detail in a way that we can actually render in realistic time. But maybe as we're going towards a final version and someone's really close up and we want to see their pores really well, we'll move that to 5 or 6. But we'll need a better computer to go to 6. And then these numbers I've not yet figured out the perfect combination, but they change things dramatically. So this is the height, which kind of makes sense. This is all the height, and it takes each time you hit those numbers, it takes a while for it to catch up. So you can see now it's not just the height, but it's the depth. So things will pull in towards the mouth if they're lower, and things will push out. But it's kind of cool because you can kind of make them older right away. And when you have this number set to the right value, the height doesn't do anything crazy. But this value, boy, this thing can really make things crazy. So let's just go to 0.4, for example. Okay, so you can see how dangerous. And this is the scalar zero value. It kind of takes the where the middle gray area is on the displacement map. Let's see if we can find that displacement map real quickly. Here it is. I've put it in the main character folders, and if you just double click on it, you can see the displacement map. So he's got this bump on the head that you can see there. He's got a little bump on the nose and bump on the chin. Those are the things that come out. And then the dark areas are the things that go inside. And we can see that, right? So let's go back to 0.2. And I forget the value I had here. I think it was like 2. It was like probably 1.9. I don't know. And we'll be tweaking these right up to the last minute. They're kind of global values for these characters. And you'll see that he's got this bump on his head that I added just to make him feel a little bit less like a round ball. And then we'll tweak where they have, sort of imperfections on their skin. But I don't have a lot of good displacement maps yet. Kevin's gotten pretty good at making them, but we haven't perfected that yet. And we'll be working on that throughout the process. I also do some, and you can see the displacement map actually here in the hypershade. So if we go to head, that is head. I guess I've got to click on this one and see what's coming in and out of it. Yes, so here's the displacement map, and it doesn't go into the standard surface shader. It actually goes into this node over here, the CC base body, which is why when you need to find it, you need to click over onto the CC base body over here. So we have to click here, and you'll see CC base body shape over there to find the displacement values. And there's really only two. So it's this one and this area right here. And these are the ones that end up being tweaked. They're kind of unique for every character. So when I brought the displacement map in, I just dragged from out alpha to the displacement shader. A lot of this will probably be done for you, but the important thing is knowing how to be able to unhook it if you're really getting frustrated working on animation. Obviously, the simplest way to unhook this is just to pull this off. But you still may end up with calculation issues because you didn't turn your numbers down here, and you can crash your computer pretty quickly juking these displacement things around a lot. Surprised I haven't crashed it yet. And the best way to turn off subdivision or lower your calculations is just turning this to 1 or turning it to none. Okay, and now your computer will start to render fast. And the other thing that will make it fast will be to turn off subsurface scattering. Okay, so when I'm doing a lot of quick tests of animation, I'm going to, maybe make it gray or just, so that'll obviously render much faster. I don't know why it's continuing to render. Because I'm moving this. Every time I move hypershade, it re-renders. I don't know what's going on. That's a little weird. Feels like a bug. But Arnold skinhead shader. Okay, so this is probably the best way to render right now. This will turn off. It doesn't see if subsurface scattering on right now. Let's go check. So to get to subsurface scattering, we go to hypershade and oh yeah, look. The subsurface color is going up here and he does have it on. So yeah, these things will be tweaked as I go forward too. View head with display. Okay, you see how this is making connections and cutting connections? U displacement, no subsurface scattering. I don't know why that would say no subsurface scattering when it definitely has. Oh, subsurface has been turned to 0 here, right? Even though it's hooked up. And Arnold skin shader, that's why those radius numbers changed. So each of these buttons goes through and just does various settings. Okay, view head with displacement, but I'll be tweaking those. But in the end, you're not going to have to worry too much about them, except for the fact that it'll totally slow down your render if you've got them both set to the max value. So to get the displacement working again, we make sure we're clicking on the body. We go to subdivision, and it's called Cat Clark, and we wanted it and for atoms, we have these numbers. You'll see for other characters, the numbers are completely different. And we'll be tweaking them again. So here he is. He's starting to look more like a human. And that's great. All right. That's my introduction to those two features, subsurface scattering and displacement.